Hello everyone, Nadezhda here, and in today's lesson we are going to learn what to do about this annoying error that pops up to each one of us almost every day. Let's see some options that we check out in case this error appears to us. So first option is view range. Let's see that on an example. I will choose one window and I will define the sill height of 2 meters, for example. I will add that window to my plan and I get this error. None of the created elements are visible in the floor plan. And why did that happen? If I go to my 3D and select this place that I have added my window to, I can see that this window does appear. So when I go to my view range option, that is in extents or it is in the template, if you have the template assigned, and I enter it, I can see that my cut plane is on meter 0.2. So basically this means that any element that goes above this plane will not be visible unless it's generic model. So we cut here and we look towards the bottom. So obviously our window that is placed on the 2 meters height will not be visible. When I select that window, I have the option of either changing the sill height to be in some height that our view range recognizes, or if we can't do that, the other option is obviously changing the view range. So if I change the view range to be, for example, 2 meter and 100, I also have to change the stop plane as well, and let's add 2 meter and 200 and click OK. Now our window will be visible. The third option is the option we use when we can't use any of these two options. For example, you cannot change the entire view range because that obviously does not go well with the rest of your elements, and you can't change the sill height because obviously your building sill height will be above. So the third option is plan region. In this case, what we do is we go to the view option and we go to the plan view and we choose the plan region. The plan region option allows us to change the view range only in the drafted area. So I took the plan region and I will just draft this one rectangle that covers my window, and then I select the view range option here, and here I can basically manually set up this view range for only this area that I have drafted. So in this case I will change the view range only here. I will define the view range that fits my window and click OK. And now, as you can see, our window is visible again and we didn't have to change the entire view range for it. If you want to change the view range of this area, you can select this plan region and then go to Edit again. You can also delete it if you don't need it, and what is also important to note is that these lines that we see here are not visible when plotting. When I zoom in this area and I go to print option and I will just choose visible portion of the current view here and I click preview, we can see that none of these lines are visible when printing. So it's important to note that even though you see those lines of the plan regions, they are not visible in the final plot, so you do not have to hide them or do anything to update their appearance. You can of course hide them in the visibility graphics when you search for plan regions, but even though you can do that, you don't have to do that because, like I said, they will not be visible when plotting and exporting to PDF. The next setting you have to check is visibility graphics or template option. Let's say I want to add some bush or some other planting inside my building, and I go to the massing and site planting tool and I place some plant, for example here, and I get this error again. And now that I know that my view range is okay because I see it's on elevation level 0, next thing I check is my visibility graphics option. I go to the planting and now I can see that my planting is actually hidden in the visibility graphics. I unhide it and I click OK. And now I can see this bush here, and this is something you always should check as well. And if you have a template assigned here in the view template, then you don't check in the visibility graphics, but you actually check it here in the overrides model of your template. The next setting we check are the filters. So let's say I want to add some plumbing fixture to my model. I check plumbing fixture, I find the water closet, I click, and I get this error. If I checked my view range and my visibility graphics option, the next thing I check are the filters. I go to either template or visibility graphics and I go to filter. And here I can see that at some point I have enabled the water closet filter, and this will happen a lot, especially if you work in teams, because sometimes people will add some filters that you don't know of, and then even some elements that weren't planned originally will fall under the filters. So if you have checked the first two options and both visibility graphics and view range are set up properly, then you should check each of the filter, whether filter exists like this, or maybe whether the element has fallen under some wrong filter. So I can see that this filter exists, and I can just turn on the visibility of my plumbing fixtures, and now I can see that I can add this family. Next option is hidden elements. So if I click on this same toilet bowl and I go to the option hide in view and I hide this element, and as you can see, this setting is very different from temporary hide. When I use temporary hide and I select one element and I check these glasses and click on hide elements, this temporary hide allows us to see this blue line that basically indicates that something is temporarily hidden. So we can always go to reset temporary hide elements, and that way the blue lines around the drawing will disappear and we will know that everything that was under the temporary hide will be visible now. But unlike that, this other basically permanent hide hides the elements permanently until we manually unhide them. How do we do that? So I can see this toilet bowl and the first three options have proven to be alright. Then the next thing I do is I check this reveal hidden element option. This option allows me to see everything in my plan that has been manually hidden. The manual hiding of the elements is never a good option, and I generally advise my students not to use it because very often we will forget something. And when you hide something this way, it basically disappears only on this plan. So sometimes you can create a section or some elevation or some 3D view and then have this element pop up in your drawings. And that, at least in my case, when working on bigger teams, have proven to be very big trouble because sometimes people will not be cautious enough and they will hide things this way, and then other members of the project will not know of this, and then they will have a lot of trouble with some elements appearing in some other views, and that is obviously not good. So I generally do not recommend people to actually use this command at all. Only if you're like working alone on the project and you have the perfect control of what is going on. But in general, when you are working in teams, it is much better to use filters and visibility graphics, and that way you actually have a very good controlled graphical settings of your views, and this is kind of uncontrolled and it can cause a lot of chaos. So in general, I advise you to not do that. But if this has happened to you and you see this toilet bowl now here, you can just select it and click on unhide element, and that way once you close reveal hidden elements, this toilet bowl will appear once again, and now you can actually delete it. Next option will be about Workset, and this option is only applicable to you if you are working in the teams, if you have a work shared model. So I will go back to massing and site and choose that bush I created before again, and I will add it. And now I don't see it, and I have properly set up both of my view range, visibility graphics. It is not hidden. So what is the next thing I check? The next thing I check are the worksets. If you have the worksets enabled in your project and you go to the worksets tool, we can see that I have created this temporary workset that is not visible in all of the views. So when I turn on this workset, I can see those shrubs that I have created. And then if I want to turn that workset back off, I can select these elements, and instead of this hidden workset, I can choose the workset that is visible. And then once I go back to my worksets and I turn off this temporary workset, all of my elements will now be visible. So it's important to check if you are working in some workset that is going to be invisible, or if you have left your elements there where they aren't visible anymore. Next option we have is phasing. If your project is modeled with the different phases, sometimes the elements can fall under the wrong phase. Let's say, for example, that I have drafted these shrubs and they are from the existing phase, and accidentally I have assigned them the phase demolished, the new construction. They are not visible anymore, and the reason for that is because the phase of this drawing is set up to only show the complete phase of the new construction. So everything that is existing and demolished will not be visible anymore. So in that case, what we have to do is we can show the existing phase of our building, and since this model is not the model that has any phasing applied to it, only these two shrubs will be visible there. Now I can select these two shrubs and I can just change their phase to be the new construction. I can change also the phase demolished to none, so they will be visible once I turn my plan back onto the right phase. So I go to the phase and I change the phase of the view to be new construction. And this way now we can see everything, and we can also see these two shrubs because they are not in the wrong phase anymore. Essentially, if you're working on the project that has some existing phases and you use those phasing options, you always have to be mindful of whether your elements are in the wrong phase. If they are in the wrong phase, sometimes you have to just make sure to transfer them into the right phase, and that way they will become visible once again. And the next option we have is scope box and crop view option. Each of the drawing usually have one of these assigned to it. It is either the scope box or it is crop view, and when we want to add something outside of these boundaries, it will not be visible. For example, I will also add side component and I will choose some tree, and let's say I add some tree here, and now I can see that none of these elements are visible. In this case, in the case of this view, it is very visible where the boundaries are, so we obviously can see that it is not visible because of the crop view or scope box, but sometimes you will have some situations with some projects where you don't have many things modeled outside of the building, and you will not instantly realize that you have scope boxes or crop views assigned. So in that case, if you see that that is the problem, if you check this, then what you have to do is you have to go to some other view and define some larger scope box. And now I can see that my tree is visible here. Or if you have the crop view and not scope box, you basically have to simply make your crop view visible and then just change its boundaries, and you can then change it back to invisible, or you can assign the scope box which you work with. This next option is specific only to structural column, but it is something that happens very often to people. When I choose structural column, by default this option of placement is set up to be depth. Once you place your column, we automatically get this error. The reason why we get it is because this column, as you can see, have been placed in the level below. Generally, it works like that by default, and if you want to be placing the columns on the exact level you are working on, you should be choosing this option height instead. When you use the option height, As you can see, now this column is placed exactly on this level. So this is something that confuses a lot of people, and this is actually the cure to columns not being visible and being placed on the level below. Simply, you must change this default option. And this is it. This is all for this lesson. If you find it helpful, subscribe to my channel. I post these lessons every couple of days. And if you like working with me, check out my full beginner's Revit course at BIMTonic.net, where I actually have 20 hours of organized lessons with more than 100 lessons available. And you also have the assignments and the full support of the instructor, which is me. Of course, if you had any trouble with this, if you have some additional questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. I answer all of these questions, and thank you for watching, and see you in the next lesson. Bye! If you want to learn Revit like a pro, take a look at my architectural course through the link below. You will learn how to develop the project from concept to final design using Autodesk Revit. It is ideal for beginners, but valuable for anyone looking to build a solid foundation. By the end, you'll know how to take a design from concept to detailed documentation with confidence and clarity. You will gain a solid Revit workflow you can actually use independently or in work in larger teams in architectural studios. With almost 100 structured video lessons, it is designed to help beginners master Revit step by step. To support your progress, I've included assignments with each lesson, plus the opportunity to ask questions and receive guidance directly from me whenever you need it. This way, you're not just watching tutorials, you're actively learning, practicing, and improving every step of the way. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.